Tell me honestly, have you ever seen a ghost after helping with so many funerals? Suddenly, Sister N looked straight into my eyes and asked me. Until just moments ago, the two of us had been sitting in a cafe, chatting about all sorts of nonsense, when she suddenly changed the subject. Our group often participates in charitable activities, helping lonely families who have lost loved ones and cannot afford to take care of the funeral arrangements. Hearing her question, I immediately replied, I hope I never have to. If the dead really do come back, they should go see their own loved ones. Why would they come looking for me? Taking another drag from her cigarette, she continued, then do you believe ghosts exist? Of course I do. There's nothing that can't happen. She took a sip of coffee and another drag from her cigarette, seemingly gathering the courage to speak. Then she lowered her voice and said, let me tell you the story of my life. It's a scar in my heart that has always remained painful and aching. Sister N was 7 or 8 years older than me. Even now, she remained single and alone. Whenever she heard that our group was going somewhere to do charity work, she would eagerly join us. I was the youngest member of the volunteer group. Most of the others were older aunts and uncles, along with several men and women who were also older than me. Because we belonged to the same group and had participated in so many charitable activities together, Sister N and I gradually became close, almost like sisters in the same family. She began, my whole life has been one chain of suffering after another. Perhaps I was born into this life to repay my karma and atone for the consequences of things I did in a previous life. My family was Vietnamese of Chinese descent. After 1975, when I was only a few months old, my parents fled the country by boat. They left me with a female relative. Every month, my parents sent money back to her to raise me. I never knew how much money they sent, but my life was miserable. Every day was like eating rice mixed with tears. The people in that household would take turns insulting and beating me whenever they were unhappy or had run out of money. I knew my place, so I was very obedient and worked hard to help with everything around the house. There was one older female cousin who was 2 years older than me. She was the only one who would stand up for me whenever I was bullied. That was why the two of us became very close. When I was in 9th grade, one day she told me, today is my birthday. Put on your nicest clothes. Tonight, I'll take you out. I was very excited because I rarely ever got the chance to go out and have fun. That night, after everyone had eaten and drunk together, they invited one another to karaoke. Later, they decided to go to a hotel. I didn't know anything about what was going on. Wherever they took me, I simply followed. Once inside the hotel, everyone brought out marijuana and white powder and started using them. Someone offered some to me. I knew what it was and immediately refused. I just sat there drinking water and watched them get high. Then, for some reason, I suddenly became overwhelmingly sleepy. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. When I woke up the next morning, my entire body was aching, and I was completely naked. Looking around, I saw my cousin's friends scattered around the room, still asleep. I immediately understood what had happened to me. In unbearable pain, I wrapped my arms around myself and sat there sobbing. After that, my cousin drove me home. Before we left, she threatened me repeatedly and warned me never to tell anyone. Otherwise, I would be beaten and expelled from school. I was still young and naive. I was terrified, especially of being expelled from school, because school was the only excuse I had to leave that house, which felt like a prison. So I swallowed my pain and remained silent. From that day onward, I became indifferent and stubborn. I seemed to want to rebel against everything. Before that, whenever people beat me, I would beg them to stop. Afterward, I no longer cared. They could beat me as much as they wanted. I simply endured it without reacting. At the end of 9th grade, my parents returned to Vienna. They came to take me home. It wasn't long before they noticed that my abdomen had become abnormally large. My mother took me to TD hospital for an examination. The doctor told us that I was already 20 weeks pregnant. Then I was beaten terribly and cursed as a disgrace. My parents demanded to know who the father of the baby was. At that point, I no longer had anything to hide. Crying, I told them everything. Immediately, they confronted my cousin and questioned her about everything that had happened. That was when I painfully realized that the cousin I had loved and trusted, the person who had always protected me, was actually the one who had caused me the greatest harm. Apparently, her boyfriend had threatened to leave her. I don't know why she was so emotionally dependent on him, but she begged him repeatedly not to abandon her. That was when that sinister man devised a disgusting plan and demanded that she cooperate. And she agreed. She willingly put sleeping pills into my glass of water, handed me over to her boyfriend and his friends, and allowed him to sexually assault me one after another. Honestly, when my parents asked who the father of the baby was, I didn't know which of those men was responsible. I didn't want to terminate the pregnancy, but my mother forced me to do it at all costs. She took me to TD hospital to get rid of the baby. But the doctor said the fetus was already too far along and could not be aborted. She then took me to a private clinic and begged repeatedly until they finally agreed to give me medication to induce premature labor. I was devastated and in terrible pain, but my mother pressured me so much that I had no choice but to obey. I suffered excruciating pain for 2 whole days before giving birth to a male fetus that had already turned blue. Eventually, everything slowly faded into the past. 3 years later, Sister N was in 12th grade, and her family's financial situation had deteriorated badly. When her parents had first returned to Vienna, they had been extremely wealthy, arguably one of the richest families among the Chinese-Vietnamese community in their area. But her mother began suffering from persistent illnesses. They went from one hospital to another, from one clinic to another, spending enormous amounts of money trying every treatment they could find. Yet her illness simply would not improve. Their money ran out. Her parents sold their land, their house, and virtually all their possessions so that her mother could seek treatment overseas. But even then, her condition did not improve in the slightest. One day, after Sister N returned from attending Mass at BC Church on LVS Street in PN District, she stopped at a small restaurant to have breakfast. A woman sitting nearby kept staring at her with a scrutinizing expression. Eventually, the woman approached her and asked, "Do you have any brothers or sisters who died young?" Sister N replied, "No, Mom. I'm an only child." The woman told her, "Then you should go to District 3, to this address. Ask someone there to perform a spirit calling ritual and see what happens. I can see the spirit of a child following you." Sister N was skeptical, but curiosity got the better of her, so she decided to make the trip and see for herself. After all sorts of rituals had been performed to summon the spirit, they continued calling for some time. Suddenly, the woman began to shiver. Then she started crying like a little child. Through sobs, she said,
"I love my mother very much, but I hate Grandma. Grandma wouldn't let me be born and meet my mother."
Hearing those words, all the pain and humiliation from that year came rushing back to Sister N. Suddenly, she burst into tears as well. The child continued sobbing. Its voice sounded childish and unclear, with words that were not fully formed. It said that when people pulled it out, they had used a pair of forceps and clamped them onto its mouth, then pulled it out, causing its mouth to tear. Then it said that it had returned to find its grandmother, the person who had once insisted on killing it, to take revenge. During the day, it would climb onto its grandmother's head, grab her hair, force her down, and torment her. At night, it would disturb her so she could not sleep. That, it claimed, was why Sister N's mother suffered from excruciating headaches, neck pain, aching shoulders, and insomnia, even though medical examinations could find no illness. Eventually, the family had become financially ruined because they had spent so much money seeking treatment without success. The child also said,
"I've already taken revenge for my mother. The person who hurt my mother, I made her hang herself and die."
Sister N was startled. She didn't know whether the child was telling the truth or simply saying something like a child making up a story. She said goodbye and arranged to return soon to call the spirit again and speak with it. When she got home, what the child had said left her deeply unsettled. She immediately went to her aunt's house to ask about her former relatives. She hated them from the bottom of her heart and had not wanted to hear anything about them for years. Ever since her mother had brought her home, she had never once returned to that house that had haunted her memories. After asking around, she discovered that it was true. Her older female cousin had hanged herself and died several months earlier. Sister N immediately went home and told her mother everything. Her mother was skeptical as well. Their family was Catholic, so she did not believe in things like this. But faced with what appeared to be undeniable evidence, she eventually agreed to accompany Sister N to another spirit calling ritual. After the same rituals as before, the little boy entered the medium. He immediately began crying and pouring out a stream of words filled with sorrow and resentment. He complained bitterly about Sister N's mother.
I hate Grandma so much. I don't love Grandma.
Sister N's mother began sobbing. After hearing the child's account of what had happened years earlier, she finally believed it. She pleaded with the boy, "Please understand your grandmother. Your mother was still so young at the time. She was only in 9th grade. What would happen to her future? Your grandmother had no choice but to do what she did. Please, if you love your mother, then try to understand and forgive your grandmother too." Her mother had to promise to bring the child home and properly take him to church before he finally agreed to forgive her. So many years have passed, but I still can't escape the memories. That is why I've never been able to get close to anyone or build a relationship with anyone. I've become almost indifferent to life. Whenever I have free time, I go out and do charity work. Only then can I find a little happiness in my heart. That is my life. That is what my life has been like. I sat there speechless, listening to her entire story. My heart felt tightly constricted, and I could not find a single word to say. Sister N took another drag from her cigarette and stared into the distance. Slowly, she exhaled thin strands of grey smoke. Grey, just like her life.